Excellent. All right, sixth graders, I want to welcome you to your first online social studies lesson with Mr. Robbins. Today, we're going to talk about the topic of the 5 themes of geography. Specifically with the 5 themes, what we're going to be looking at are the different ways that geographers are able to organize our understanding about the world around us and how human beings interact in it. So let's go ahead and get to it. Before we get started with breaking down each of the 5 themes, I think it's really important for us to have just kind of a basic answer to the general question of what is geography? I think that there's a lot of people in our world who like to reduce geography to just knowing the locations of different places or natural features of planet Earth, but really geography goes so much deeper than that. When you break it down to its essence, what geography is the study of trying to figure out how we human beings interact with the home that we call planet Earth. It's basically the study of our home and how we live in it, right? Geography is the attempt to understand how humans impact the environment and how the environment impacts humans by shaping our culture and really shaping everything that makes us unique individuals. And so, like I said before, what geographers have done is that they've actually taken 5 different themes or different ways of looking at geography as a way of kind of gathering information about ways how we impact our home, planet Earth that is, and how planet Earth impacts us. So why don't we go ahead and break down what some of these 5 themes are. Now, the first theme that we're going to look at is location. Now, location is a very simple concept. Location is simply where things are. When we want to understand location, we are talking about specifically where on planet Earth something is. It really doesn't get any more complicated than that. It's just where is something located on planet Earth? There's a variety of different tools that geographers use to help them find the exact location of things, but one tried and true method that's been used by geographers for decades and decades is the method of using what's known as latitude and longitude. I want you guys to go ahead and take a look at the image that you see located down below. You can see the different examples that they give for latitude and longitude. If you guys look at the picture over to the left of planet Earth, this is an example of latitude lines. You'll see that latitude lines are horizontal lines that basically go in an east-west direction. Now, despite the fact that they go in an east-west direction, they're actually measured in degrees of north and south. If that's confusing, that's okay. You're going to get some practice later on to see what I mean. If you look at the center of planet Earth on the picture to the left, you'll see this red line that goes right across the middle of planet Earth. This is the equator. The equator, which separates the northern hemisphere, which is the upper part of Earth, and the southern hemisphere, which is the lower part of Earth, is kind of this dividing line and is 0 degrees latitude. Now, the further you go up north, the greater you increase in your degrees of latitude. The further you go down south, the greater you increase your degrees in latitude southward, okay? But it's at 0 degrees on the equator. Again, if this is confusing, don't freak out because we're going to get more practice. But I just want to kind of expose you guys to the basic concept of what latitude is. Now, if you look over to the right, you'll see examples of longitude. Longitude is similar to latitude in the aspect that it goes all the way around the Earth, but instead of going east-west like lines of latitude do, you'll notice that longitude lines go north-south. And what makes it really confusing is that rather than identifying longitude lines as north or south, you actually identify them as east or west. It's really confusing in that regards, but it makes sense when you begin to practice it. The red line that you see cutting through the middle of the Earth right here is the prime meridian. So you've got the equator for latitude, you have the prime meridian for longitude. And so once you've got the prime meridian going through here, you will continue to increase degrees eastward towards the east and increasing degrees westward towards the west. Again, it's okay if you don't quite understand this. I just want to give you guys kind of a basic understanding of what latitude and longitude are. Now, the really cool thing is that geographers will take latitude lines and longitude lines, and what they'll actually do is they'll combine them. When you combine latitude lines, which are the horizontal lines that you see here, with the longitude lines, which are the lines that go up and down like a long string that you see here, what you actually form on planet Earth is a grid. And using this grid, you can find the exact location of any single place on planet Earth. And you can use the measurements of degrees to find the exact locations. For example, Savannah, Georgia, which is located right over here, might be 32 degrees north and we'll say maybe 80 degrees west. So using this grid system of latitude and longitude, you can actually find any single spot on planet Earth using this system. Later on in this week, we're going to get some actual examples, and you guys are going to be practicing finding locations using latitude and longitude. But like I said, I want to make sure that we have just kind of a basic understanding of what geographers are using when it comes to kind of exploring this idea of location. Location is finding the exact spot on planet Earth where something is. You need to remember that. The second theme that we want to talk about is region. Regions are very simple. It's any place on planet Earth that has something in common. So I want to give you guys kind of a couple of examples, and I want to give you a moment to look at it, and I want you to see what you notice about these places and what they have in common. So take a look at the two images that you see here. You've got one image that's kind of in the upper section of your screen, another one on the lower end. Take a minute to look at these two pictures, and I want you to think, what's something that they have in common? Think about it. What are some features about the landscape that might be similar? There might be some things that are different. Just by looking at these two pictures, what is something we can assume about the location of these two places? Based on what we're looking at in the picture, we can assume that this might be a desert region. The thing that these two places have in common is that it appears to be pretty dry, it appears to be pretty rocky, and it also appears to be pretty isolated. There doesn't appear to be a lot of people that live here in either of these two pictures, right? And so this is a way that geographers can kind of describe something having in common using this tool of region. Let's have another example. Take a look at these two places. You might even see this when you're driving around in a place like Indiana. What are some things that these two places have in common with each other? Well, you might notice that it's an open field, that it appears to be out in the countryside, that there are some trees, but there appear to be not very many trees. This is probably someplace located around here in maybe a place like Illinois or Indiana or Ohio or some other place like that. It's very characteristic of the Midwest. Again, using the idea of region is basically a way for geographers to identify places that have something in common with each other. Now, what's really cool about region is that it actually doesn't even depend on something that's part of the earth or part of the landscape. Region can also include the people who live there because people have things in common with them as well. Take, for example, the women that you see up here in this upper left-hand picture. You can see that there's something that they obviously have in common with each other. The way they're dressed, it looks like the dance they're doing is somehow united with each other. And so we know that this must be some sort of region because all these people that we see here have something in common. Or maybe the sports fans that you see over here on the right-hand side. They're all wearing the same jersey, assuming they're cheering for their favorite football team, I would imagine. And so we can say that there's a region where all of these people have this love of a football team, the same football team in common. And then there's a picture down over here in the bottom left. You can see that the women that you see pictured here are dressed similarly. They're carrying the basket on their heads as kind of a custom. They have kind of the same hairstyle, the same clothing style. That's something that they have in common. And so the idea of a region as a theme of geography is not just limited to the landscape. It's also seen in the people who live in the landscape because people have things in common. And when they have things in common, it helps to form a region within itself among the people who live there. The next one I want to talk about is place. Now, place is a very interesting theme of geography because place and location are very similar. In fact, a lot of people mix up place and location, but it turns out they are not actually the same. If you remember my description of location, location is the specific spot on planet Earth where something is. That is what location is. It's the specific spot on planet Earth where something is. But what is place, and how is place different than location? After all, you may say to yourself, well, I'm going to go to this place, and really what you mean is this spot on planet Earth. So it can be a little bit confusing. I want you to take a look at the two pictures that you see on the bottom. Take a look at the city that you see pictured over there and to the left. I want you to think to yourself, do I know where that city is? Give yourself a minute to think about it. If you guessed the city of Chicago, you would be correct. The city that you see over on the left-hand side is the city of Chicago. Now, I want you to take a look at the picture that you see over there to the right. Where might that be located? You might say it might be here in Indiana or perhaps Ohio or maybe in North Dakota or South Dakota. But it might surprise you that that picture that you see over there to the right with the really empty countryside is actually very close to the city of Chicago. Those places are both, or those locations, I should say, are both located in the state of Illinois. Now, what's the difference between the two? They're both located in the city or in the state of Illinois, but there's obviously some differences. Chicago is a very crowded place. The countryside that you see here is obviously not a crowded place. What place is it is the description of a location. It tells us what location is like. That is the primary difference. Place describes a location. It tells us what a specific spot on planet Earth is like. So let's go through some more examples of place. We can say that a place might be cold. It describes what a specific location is like. We might say that Michigan in the wintertime is a cold place. Place is describing the specific spot, the specific location, which is Michigan. We might say that Jamaica is very warm and tropical. Jamaica is a location. It is a specific spot on planet Earth, but place describes the location. So when we're describing Jamaica, we'll say it's very tropical. We might say the city of Mumbai, which is a location, is a specific place, is a very crowded city. Crowded would actually be a description. It's place. To say that a city is crowded is to use place to describe a specific location. Or we might say that, some desert area might be very barren, and that's describing the location. Place describes location. Location is a specific spot on planet Earth. Place is a way of describing what that spot is like. The fourth theme of geography is movement. Movement is typically involving two primary ideas. It's the movement of people and it's the movement of ideas. Movement is a very human thing because after all, most of the landscape is not regularly moving at a constant rate. I mean, yes, I know it's slowly moving from place to place, but really, when we think about movement, we're talking about something that's a very human element. And so to give you guys some examples of what movement looks like, it can involve the movement of people, the migration of people. People move around the world all the time. They're moving to find different jobs. They're moving to be with family. People moving from one location to another location is an example of movement. Immigration is a perfect example of what this movement looks like. But as I said before, it's important to remember that movement isn't just the movement of people. It's also the movement of ideas and technology. For example, the spread of religion. Religion is not a person, it's people who make up religion, right? I mean, there's different religions that spread to different parts around the world. That's an example of movement. Or examples of technology spreading from one place to another. If you guys look at the picture that you see over there on the bottom right-hand corner, or the left-hand corner, excuse me, you'll notice a group of African tribesmen who are dressed in very traditional African tribesmen dress, but you'll notice, if you look really closely, they're sitting texting on their cell phones, right? And that's not something you'd normally expect to see out in the middle of the African wilderness, or two guys texting on their cell phones. And so the fact that these guys are using their cell phones is in and of itself an example of movement. Technology has spread from more developed countries into lesser developed countries. And so movement can really involve a whole variety of different things. And then finally, the fifth theme that we're going to talk about is human-environment interaction. What is it that the people do to the environment, and what is it that the environment does for the people? Now, it's important to understand that human-environment interaction isn't always a bad thing. It can involve bad things. For example, if you look at the picture over there on the top left, you can see an example of pollution. Pollution is obviously a very negative way that humans impact the environment. But humans can also impact the environment in a positive way. For example, we can construct parks, we can construct nature reserves. We can impact our environment in a positive way that benefits humanity and also helps out animal systems as well, right? And so it's important to understand that it could be both good or bad. And there's also a kind of a switch to human environment interaction as well. We also talk about what does the environment give to humans. The environment gives resources that humans can use. This could be animals for food, or it could be land for farming. These are all the different things that the environment can give human beings to help us out as well. So human environment is kind of a two-way street. What is it that people do to the environment, and what is it that the environment does to people? That's kind of a different way for geographers to look at it. Okay, so that pretty much sums up our explanation of the 5 themes. What I want you guys to do is I've attached to this in-class activity a link to a YouTube video. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch that YouTube video. It's kind of a cheesy song, but it's a song about the 5 themes of geography. And I think it does a really good job of giving you guys kind of mental examples of what the 5 themes look like. It's really important that we remember the 5 themes of geography because this stuff's going to get covered on your test, and I want to make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of it. Okay? If you have any questions whatsoever, do not hesitate to email me, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, have an awesome rest of your day, and I look forward to hearing back from you guys soon. Take care.